oh, he's a real nerd. He's watching Star Trek. We were already getting along really well, but that was the moment of, okay, yeah, I can let my nerd flag fly now because he's a Trekkie. Yeah. He's an ultimate nerd.
Are you a single, shy nerd struggling to find a player too? If you're still trying to figure out the skills you need, here's a tutorial to get to the next level. Learn from experts and fellow nerds who found their partners, the mistakes they made, and how they still ended up together, with no cheat codes. I'm Alex Goldstein, and this is the Roll Today podcast. Hey everyone, I'm Alex, and I help shy, introverted nerds get over their fears and anxieties to find their player too. Today I bring you April, a nerd who found her player too, and we're going to talk about how they ended up together. The idea is to address some of your questions, dispel some myths, and hear about the many different ways that nerds can find real relationships. April, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for having me. It's really nice to be here.
So, what makes you a nerd? What do you think makes you a nerd?
Well, it's kind of ironic because I watched some of your previous episodes and you talked about the Tolkien Association. Weirdly enough, like one of the first things that really made me a nerd was a website called Lord of the Rings Plaza.
You're my type of person.
Fanatics Plaza. Yeah, it was for Lord of the Rings nerds to talk about the books, the lore, all kinds of stuff. And that's actually where my username came from, Legiodith. It was like a fantasy name generator that I used for that website, and then it just carried over. But I'm into everything. Like, I'm a gamer, I like anime, I like manga, really into Dungeons and Dragons, tabletop games, and yeah, just kind of into a little bit of everything, honestly. Like, super nerd in that way.
Awesome. My type of people. Fantastic. So, how did you meet your partner?
I've been with he's now my husband, Scott, for 7 years now. We just got married last month. It's actually now been a little over a month.
Congratulations.
Thank you. So it's always kind of awkward because people have like an assumption of certain dating apps, but we actually met on Tinder.
What were you looking for on Tinder? Because like you said, like many people have like those preconceptions of like Tinder is for hooking up or Tinder is for whatever it is. Like, what were you looking for on Tinder?
So I wasn't really looking for anything serious. And funny enough, my now husband, Scott, wasn't looking for anything serious either. It was more just kind of like casual, like friendship and friends with benefits, whatever you want to call it. And
so basically it was true.
Yeah, at the moment it was true. Yes, you're right.
I'm just saying, like if you're saying like people have this preconception of Tinder that, like people there are only for like some casual stuff. Yeah. Both of you were there for some casual stuff. Totally fine. Like there's nothing wrong with it. I just wanted to see like if that was your case or not. That's all.
Yeah, I mean, he told me, he was very upfront. He was like, I'm not looking for a serious relationship right now. He just wasn't in that headspace at the moment. And I really wasn't either. It was just kind of like, meeting people and see where it goes. And
right. We
were lucky to be one of the success stories in the end.
Right. I mean, success depends what you're looking for, right? What was it about his profile that you liked? Do you remember?
I do, and it's really embarrassing because he had a photo where he had his shirt off, and he was in really, really good shape. And
okay,
yeah, out of all the pictures swiping through, I saw that one and was like, oh, okay, he's a really, really good-looking guy. And takes care of himself and is in really good shape and impressed me. But I found out later he kind of socially engineered his profile. He was crazy about it. He was like, okay. I've got the good looking picture with my shirt off. I've got a picture with my dog so people know that like I care about animals. I'm a good person. I've got a picture with my friends, so, like, I'm sociable. I get along with people. he told me this like 6 years after we'd started dating. And I thought, you sneaky person, you.
Hey, look, as long as it's not AI or Photoshopped or whatever it is, it's fine. I mean,
Yeah.
Tim Ferriss has a video where he tried like a few different things to find a partner. One of those was like you said, like he went to someone who basically had like cracked the code of like what the best photos are, and he was like, the top photos are like shirtless photos and with puppies or like with pets.
Yeah.
So what Tim Ferriss did was he tested a photo. There's websites where you can go and you can put the photos and they get rated, so you can choose.
Okay.
And what he did was he took a photo shirtless with a puppy or with a cat, I think. And that was the one that got the most votes. Yeah. He's like, well, if you want to see like shirtless and you want to see puppies, I'm just gonna do both. Done. And that was like the one with the most upvotes, right? So and it works. And like I personally, like, I travel a lot, so every time I'm in a new place, I hire a photographer to take some photos. Because like in my case, I want someone who travels, so I want to show that I'm traveling, right? And I want good photos. And I was dating someone at one point, and we were at a pool with some friends, and somebody started talking about like getting a photographer for dating photos and stuff. And she was like, who would do that? And I'm like, hi, how's it going? No, you didn't. Yes, I did. And guess what happened?
It worked, I'm sure.
Oh my God. Yeah, well, because it's not photoshopped. It's not fake. It's just, I mean, I'm not the best looking person. I'm way too skinny to do shirtless photos. It's always been an issue for me to gain weight.
You've been in relationships, so obviously some people disagree with you.
No, but what I'm saying is like, I don't think I could pull off a shirtless photo. Let's just say that. Like,
fair enough.
My shirtless photo would be for like underweight people, like before and after, like before the gym would be me. And and so like getting a photographer, it's like, it helps me show me a better light than if my friends just took a photo with their phone.
Yeah.
So you saw a shirtless photo and said, I want a piece of that. Swipe right, matched. Do you remember any how did you or him open the conversation or start a conversation, or how did it go?
I really don't, and I wish I did, because I feel like he probably pulled some cheesy like one-liner. Like,
okay,
I can't think of any stereotypical like intro messages right now.
But you can remember that it was some cheesy like one-liner, right?
I feel like it probably, knowing him now, it must have been, because he's always cracking jokes. So it'd be weird if it wasn't.
But after the one-liner, did he start like asking questions, or was he straight like, let's go for coffee? Because I was seeing someone on Reddit yesterday. He was complaining that he's like, oh, like this person is like not responding or not engaging or something. He was just like, joke, 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 joke. No questions, nothing. And the poor girl was like responding. And at one point she's like, so are you looking for something serious? And he's like, yeah. Like, dude, like, sure, one joke is fine if she gets it and she likes it. But like at some point you have to like start an actual conversation.
Yeah.
So
we definitely must have had some kind of conversation, because it got to the point where it was like, hey, do you want to meet up in person? Like, do you want to go have a beer? And going out for one beer. We were very specific. We're going to have one beer, and then, that'll be it. But, and I found out later the reasoning for that was he is very, very responsible about drinking and driving. So he's like, one glass, and then, we can leave safely and everyone will get home okay. But one glass turned into 2 glasses. And I think we even had a 3rd glass, because... So
there was no driving?
There was driving far after the fact. So we had our last glass of beer, and then we still were talking for about an hour afterward.
Okay. How long was the date?
It was, like I said, it was only supposed to be one drink, so
Yeah.
maybe like an hour and a half, but we probably were at that bar for like 3 hours. We were just talking, and
That's the best.
exactly. And not expecting it either, because it was our first time meeting in person, but we were just so comfortable and talking about everything and nothing at the same time. And he was not what I expected. So my husband had a very specific haircut that he likes, and it's like pretty clean, like short on the sides, and it's like maybe 1.5 to 2 inches on the top. It's very reminiscent of what military people have. It's like a military haircut. So I saw the like in shape shirtless photo, I saw the haircut, and was like, just had an image in my mind of him being a jock, him being a gym guy, like a gym bro.
Okay.
And then when he walked in, he looked like his pictures, but he also looked different. It's hard to explain, but something about the way he carried himself was different than I expected, in a good way. And so, yeah, it was fun seeing the difference between the pictures and kind of my perception of what he would be like to what he was actually like.
But he still looked like the pictures.
Yes. Yeah,
Okay.
and that's what I mean.
Just checking.
But it's weird how somebody, like, once you see somebody's expressions and their mannerisms and stuff, you might have an idea of what they would look like just from a still photo. And then it's different when they're actually there and moving in person. And you're like, oh, it's a real person, you know?
Yeah, that's one of the things that I don't like about online dating, is that you fill in the gaps with what you want.
That's true. That's a great way of putting it.
Yeah. And I mean, this also happens in person though. Like, and I'm guilty of that. Like, I'll meet someone for 5 minutes and I'll be like, oh, I'm sure they're like this. And it's always amazing, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if you're attracted, it's amazing. If you don't like them, it's all bad. But it's even worse when it's dating profiles, because you have a little bit of information, and with information, you assume that you know so much, and you picture things in a way that it's not necessarily true.
Yeah.
So you don't remember what you talked about? Totally fine. After the 3 hours of the date, what happened?
It was one of those situations where, like I said, we had our last drink and then probably talked for another hour after that. And then I don't remember if we kissed that first night or not, to be honest. But we left the date fully expecting to have a second date. It went so well, and we just clicked immediately. Just crazy how well we got along that first date, that there was no question that we were going to have another date.
But everyone went to their respective homes.
Yes.
Okay. Do you remember if you texted straight away when you, like, afterwards, like, hey, I love this, or did you wait 3 days?
It was definitely not days. I mean, so we went home that night to our separate homes, but then I think it was pretty late, so we probably didn't text that night, but we were definitely texting already the next morning. Like, from the moment we met each other, like matched on Tinder, I feel like we were just talking consistently from then on, just immediately.
Cool. What happens after that?
Well, the interesting part was finding out that he was a nerd, because things had been going really well. We were talking, we've had subsequent dates, we've met up, we've kept talking throughout the whole thing. And then for the first time...
And nerdom never came up.
Somehow, no. I mean, we must have talked about it at some point, but you know how there's like different kinds of nerds? Like, there's gamers, and there's anime people, there's Lord of the Rings people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why I asked the first question. It's like, what everyone sees being a nerd as something different, right? So that's why I asked the first question of like, what makes you a nerd for you?
Yeah. And so I knew he was a gamer. I knew he played video games, and I'm sure I knew like what kind of games he played and things like that. But what kind of tipped the needle for me, like, oh, he's a nerd. Not just he plays
He's a proper
games.
nerd.
Exactly. Was I went to his place for the first time. He invited me over, and he had his computer monitors up. He had a dual monitor set up. The one was just his desktop, and then on the side was a paused Star Trek episode.
Okay.
And I just like glanced at it because he probably turned the monitor off or something. But for like that minute or something, I was like, oh, he's a real nerd. He's watching Star Trek. But it was like the moment that I was like, okay, yeah, we're gonna get along just fine. Like,
right.
We were already getting along really well, but that was the moment of, okay, yeah, I can let my nerd flag fly now because he's a Trekkie. Yeah. He's an ultimate nerd.
Yeah. Do you know if he did it on purpose, like his Tinder profile?
No.
Or on the other hand, did he turn it off because he was ashamed of it? Do you know if either of those would be...
So I know for a fact that he didn't leave it up on purpose because I told him probably a few years after we started dating that was something that kind of piqued my interest. Even more about him was, oh, you're watching Star Trek. Okay. So he wasn't doing it on purpose, but he did turn it off because he wasn't sure how I was going to feel about it.
Okay, so I would say that, maybe he was not ashamed, but this is something that I have noticed people doing and that I often point out is they will complain that, oh, when I mention my hobbies or my interests, that's a turnoff, right? What I find is that it's often not the hobby or the interest itself. It's how you approach a topic. Like, I will tell someone, I'm a nerd. I watch anime, I play video games, I read fantasy, whatever it is. And I'll leave it at that. And we keep chatting. They, like, sometimes I'll be like, yeah, I've been, like, watching anime. What's anime? Oh, it's Japanese cartoons, whatever. Oh, that's so childish, or that's so nerdy. And I'm like, yeah. And we keep talking about something else. Now, if you tell me, oh, what are you watching? Then I'll mention what I'm watching. If they say, oh, I've been watching so and so, then we can just go full on and just nerd out. Yeah. But I'm not going to hide it. I'm going to say, look, this is here. It's a thing. I'm not going to overshare unless you're interested. And what I see most people doing is like, they don't see and they don't check to see if the other person is interested or not. And they just start talking about their nerdy stuff, right? Nonstop, even though the person's not interested. And you might have other stuff in common. The other thing that I wanted to mention is I was also at some point, like a while ago, I was chatting with someone that I met on a dating app and for nomads. And we're chatting, normal conversation. I was like, she's nice, whatever. It's fine. Like, we're just chatting. And then she sends me a screenshot. She's like, oh, I found you on this other nomad app. There's quite a few because it's hard to find each other. And I'm like, oh, interesting. So I go to the app and I find her profile and I match her profile. And she says that she loves Star Wars and that her ideal date would be a Lord of the Rings marathon. I'm like, oh my God, you're one of us. So jokingly, I said, during the pandemic, I did a Star Wars marathon. We watched 11 movies in 4 sittings. And her response was that's actually kind of hot. Now, I would not tell someone, use that as a pickup line. But in this case, like, I just threw it out there. Let's see. And from then on, like, it just skyrocketed, right? Because it was like, oh, and like, we were in different countries. In the end, she ended up dating someone in the country that she was at the moment. I can't compete with that, so fair enough. But I was like, well, like if we meet in person, how about the date? The date could be we go for dinner and then we go somewhere and because she also likes Lego. So I was like, we can get this Lego of like Gandalf and a Balrog and we can make them while watching the Lord of the Rings. And she's like, that sounds like the perfect date.
That does sound like the perfect date.
Exactly. But I can't tell that to other people who are not nerds. They'll be like, what are you talking about? Like playing with Lego? Like watching what?
And what's the ball wag? What were you talking about? They wouldn't even know.
Exactly. So I think it's a good thing that he sort of like left it there, like the screen, for on purpose or not. Like, so you could see like, okay, this is a thing. If you wanna like talk about it or whatever it is, know that it's a thing.
Yeah.
I love that, and it's interesting that neither of you brought it up, which I find it very normal because we are not sure who we're gonna find on the other side. Was that the second date? No. So
that was we'd probably known each other for maybe a month at that point, because I'd never been to his place.
So you guys went on the first date, then you kept chatting. Then what happened after that?
Yeah, we were friends with benefits, and we'd probably been seeing each other for 2 or 3 months. Like, that seems quick in hindsight, but we had this really sweet moment where we were hanging out and we were just like watching a show or something silly, and he looked at me and he said, when are we going to admit we care more about each other than we should? And the world kind of came crashing down. Oh boy, this is serious, because I'd been having those feelings too, but I was not afraid, but I was hesitant to say something because we had been very clear. Like, this is just what it is, and we're not going to be in a serious relationship. But in all that time talking to him, I was slowly falling in love with him. And to hear him say that was like the light bulb, like, wait, he's been thinking it too. It's okay for me to tell him. And so I just collapsed immediately, like told him, like, yeah, you're right. I do care about you more than we said we would. And that was when we made the decision to start dating and being serious about each other. But I just always think back to that moment of just like how pure that love was in that moment. And I just want to bottle it and just keep it because it was so sweet. It was so nice. And just like the purest thing. It was just, I'm like blushing thinking about it because it was really, really nice.
Someone that I interviewed, Stephen.
Hi, Stephen.
Basically, he ended up dating his best friend who he'd known for like 5 years. And one of the things he said was like, he's like, I don't understand how people can say like, oh, I just went on like 2 or 3 days with someone and I know they're the one and that's it. Right. And we basically had a long conversation about like how it takes some time to sort of like get to know the other person and see if you're a good fit and see if you like each other and whatnot. In your case, even though you started as friends with benefits, I would say that it's a similar thing, right? It's, look, we're both just looking for something casual for whatever reason it is. It's totally valid. And then you had that time to get to know them. Mm-hmm. And to say, actually, this is a person that I want to spend, I don't want to say my life, but at least much more time with.
Yeah.
You know, and with a more serious relationship. And so even though let's say that the physical stuff happened faster, until you decided to actually date, it took some time. But apart from that, I wanted to point out, you guys were clear about what you wanted, what you expected, everything. And yet you also changed it.
Mm-hmm.
That's something that many people are afraid of. It's like, well, but if I say I want this, then I'm stuck with it.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's true. Like, you can say, look, right now, I'm looking for this.
Mm-hmm.
Later can say, hey, what do you think of changing the arrangement?
Yeah. And that would have been so much nicer if we had that understanding and had the ability to be comfortable with that. Whereas he had to feel like the brave one to put that forward, to say, actually, I think we've kind of evolved into something more serious here. It should be easier. We should have been able to say, hey, about that, decision we made about not being serious, let's maybe reassess that. Now that we've known each other longer, it's easier to do that, because we talk about love languages a lot, and the fact that as you get older, even maybe on a day-to-day basis, your love language can change. One day you might need this, one day you might need that, and being open to that fact of, we're evolving real human beings. We're not going to be the same our whole lives. And I talk to him about that a lot. Like, I'm always trying to better myself. I'm always trying to do better and do more. And so what's working for me now might not work for me in the future. And we have to just kind of go with the flow and evolve together. And I'd say we've done okay so far, being 7 years along, but
yeah, for sure. Yeah. I mean, I think communication is key, and not only communicating, but also how you communicate.
Yeah.
And yeah, you were saying like, oh, we should have been more comfortable. I mean, we all should have something different.
Yeah.
Right. But the point is that you did change the agreement. In this case, you both were on the same page. Sometimes you're not, and that's totally fine. But you also don't want to be stuck in an agreement that you don't want to.
Yeah.
Even you agree with it. Like, if you said, yeah, we're just going to be friends with benefits, and you're like, like I want to be something else. I know that we said we were on Tinder and we didn't want anything serious and whatnot, but but you say nothing, or you say it and the other person says, no, actually, I want to stay the way we are.
Yeah.
You still have a choice to continue or not.
Mm-hmm.
And that should be okay.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you want to say or share that we didn't talk about?
I mean, I can share how the nerdiness went into our wedding. I have a photo, a few photos I can send you after
Please
this.
do. So tell me about the wedding.
Yeah, funny enough, we had a pretty standard wedding. Like, I had the white dress, he had the black suit, and walked down the aisle, like all of that. But we wanted to have some kind of tie-in to the fact that we're both nerds and, all of that. Also, I should mention, my husband proposed to me at a Renaissance festival. So...
Were you dressed up?
Yeah, we both dressed up.
So good.
And yeah, so he proposed to me at a Renaissance festival. And so to kind of tie in with that, it was like, we need to have swords. We need to have swords for the wedding photos.
Okay.
And so in true fashion for me, I got a replica of Andoro from Lord of the Rings, Aragorn's sword.
Yep.
And he's very into Roman. The sword he had was basically like a Spartan sword. It was like the Gladius short sword. Right. And so I was kind of embarrassed about it because my family they're not nerds. They're not about any of that. And so I was worried about bringing these swords out and taking pictures with all my family watching. Come to find out after the fact, everyone loved it. And those are the photos that they're like wanting to print and frame and put on the wall. They love the sword photos. And so I was so happy that I was comfortable enough to do that because everybody loved it. It blew me away. They're like, oh, the swords were so cool. So that all worked out perfectly.
I think that ties back to what we were saying before of showing your nerdy side, not overbearing, but at least showing it.
Yeah.
Because like people might be into it. Sure, like your family may not be into you reciting, I don't know, the whole of Aragorn's heritage, but they'd be cool with a bunch of swords.
Yeah.
You know?
We also played There and Back Again as the song we walked back up the aisle together. I was adamant. I said, like, we did the bride's march, like the very traditional, like, Here Comes the Bride song when I walked up, because Scott said, he's like, if I have one thing at the wedding, it's you're going to walk to Here Comes the Bride. I don't know why. He really wanted it. And I said, okay, cool. That's whatever. I'm fine with that. But I said, I want to play a Lord of the Rings song coming back up the aisle.
Yeah.
And we compromised. He was okay with it. And that was just, it made me so happy. I love that song so much. It just gives me happy, warm, fuzzy feelings.
Thank you so much, April, for coming. And everyone else, if you have any questions for April or for past or future guests, please send them to me, leave a comment, send me an email at dm@rolltoday.com or at my social media at rolltodate. And I'll see if maybe I can bring April back. Maybe we can bring Scott back. Who knows? Or so that I know what to ask in the future. April, thank you so much. And everyone, take care. Do you want a cheat code to level up? Listening to more episodes will help you learn the skills faster. So make sure you follow the show.